From the News Channel 5 Network, this is SportsLine.
Hey there, SportsLine on your television. Steve Layman here with you. Glad you are here with us on this Monday night on News Channel 5. Plus, of course, we thought a few weeks ago this might be another edition of Titans Talk because the Titans, of course, were expected to be in the AFC Championship game. That did not happen, though. And so here we are tonight with SportsLine, though we're going to talk a lot about the Titans and a lot about what we saw over the weekend in championship football. Another incredible weekend, excuse me, in the NFL. AFC Championship game was terrific. The Bengals rallying back from 18 down, 11 down at halftime, actually getting the lead in the fourth quarter. The Chiefs kicking a field goal at the end of regulation, the fifth consecutive game in the NFL playoffs that had a field goal to either tie or win it on the final play of regulation. These games have been amazing. And this one lived up to the hype as well. Then they go into overtime. Everybody thought that it was going to be the Chiefs. Home field. They win the coin toss again. We all saw what happened last week against Buffalo when that happened. Patrick Mahomes just drives the team right down the field, and the Chiefs win and they advance, right? Well, that didn't happen this time. The Chiefs' offense, it was all sorts of out of sorts in the second half of that game. It's a 3rd and long. Mahomes tries to take a shot down the field to Tyreek Hill. The pass gets deflected and ultimately intercepted by Von Bell. And the Bengals have their own chance. They put the ball on the ground. They drive down the field. They get in position. And Evan McPherson, who is becoming one of the most clutch kickers in the NFL, a draft pick, a rookie. People were wondering what they were doing. Well, as they tweeted after the game, this is why you draft a kicker, because you get a really good one. And Evan McPherson is that. He's now 12 for 12 in the NFL playoffs on field goals. Second most field goals ever in a single postseason. And, of course, he's going to have the opportunity to maybe match or even best that in the Super Bowl in a couple of weeks, because for the second straight week, he hits a walk-off game winner. This time it was much shorter than the one we saw at Nissan Stadium last week, but it was just as good, and the feeling even more sweet for the Bengals, who are off to the Super Bowl for the first time since 1988. And who would have thought that? A few weeks ago, the Bengals hadn't won a playoff game in 31 years. They had never won a road playoff game until last Saturday when they came to Nashville and beat the Titans. And now they've won 3 straight playoff games for the first time in franchise history and knocked off the number 1 and number 2 seeds in the AFC on the road on the way to their 3rd ever Super Bowl appearance. An incredible run by the Bengals, incredible performance by Joe Burrow. That defense in the second half was great. And another top seed in the AFC that's going to be sitting there scratching their head and wondering what could have been for a long time. We can talk more about the Titans as we move along in this, because there's still a lot to digest from last week, but it's clear the Titans blew that game. Give the credit to the Bengals. They had a good game plan. Joe Burrow took advantage of the opportunities that presented himself when he wasn't getting sacked on every other drop back. He was able to make a play here and there. Jamar Chase broke some tackles. He got free time to time. Again, you got T. Higgins that made some big plays for that Bengals offense. They made just enough plays and took advantage of all of the Titans' mistakes, namely 3 Ryan Tannehill interceptions. Yesterday, similar stuff. The Bengals just did what they had to do. They took advantage of the opportunities presented, and they took advantage of the Chiefs self-destructing. It was 21-3 late in the first half of that game, and it felt like the Chiefs were going to be able to pick their score. I mean, midway through the second quarter, if you said that the Chiefs were going to win that game 42-14, I'm not sure anybody watching would have disagreed with you. But the Chiefs defense gives up a big play on kind of a nondescript play before the half. 44-yard touchdown to Samaje Perine. All of a sudden, it's an 11-point game. No big deal. Plenty of time on the clock for Patrick Mahomes in that offense. After all, they scored a touchdown or got into field goal range, in 13 seconds last week against the Bills. So they had plenty of time here. And they did. They drove the ball down the field. But time was running out to get it in the end zone. And with no timeouts left, they lined up with 5 seconds on the clock instead of just kicking the field goal and taking what was essentially a free 3 points at that point to go into the halftime locker room up by 14. They tried to run another play. They got greedy. And Mahomes inexplicably threw it in the field of play, and Tyreek Hill gets stopped by Eli Apple, and the half's over. And the Chiefs get nothing out of it. And in the second half, the offense struggled. And I don't know whether it was lamenting what they did before half, whether that rattled Mahomes, whether it's all the adjustments of the Bengals. Maybe it's a little bit of all of it. But the Chiefs were absolutely dominating that game right up until that moment, right before half. And then in the second half, the offense couldn't do anything until the final possession. And even then, when they did get going, they had 1st and goal to win the game with a touchdown. And somehow they ended up kicking a 40-some-yard field goal. That was the lack of execution and a terrible sack by Patrick Mahomes. But again, congrats to the Bengals. It's an incredible postseason run and effort by them. But, oh, man, did they get some breaks as well. Because the top 2 teams, at least by seed in the AFC, didn't look anything like it in the 2 games that they played the Bengals. Those 2 teams blew their opportunity. And the Bengals just took advantage. In the NFC, it was the Rams coming back from 10 down in the 4th quarter and getting a field goal inside the final 2 minutes to finally beat the 49ers. They were swept during the regular season this year. They were swept last year. They were swept the year before that. The last time they beat the 49ers was in 2018, on their way to Super Bowl 53. Now the Rams go back with Matthew Stafford at quarterback. How did that trade work out in the offseason? Cooper Kupp, the emerging offensive star in the entire NFL. And Sean McVay a chance to win a Super Bowl in his 2nd chance after being denied by the Patriots in Super Bowl 53. That game wasn't pretty. There was a lot of defense involved, but the Rams found a way to get it done. It was enough Stafford and enough Kupp in particular down the stretch to put themselves in a position to go back to the Super Bowl. Initial thoughts of that game? Joe Burrow's either going to become a legend or he's going to get killed. I mean, that is the initial thought. He's either going to have a remarkable game again and somehow lead the Bengals to the literal promised land in his 2nd year in the NFL, or the Rams front with Von Miller and Aaron Donald and all those guys are going to eat him alive with that Bengals offensive front. I don't know which it's going to be. Maybe Joe can pull off another superhuman type performance. But let me tell you, the Rams have a definitive edge in the trenches going against the Bengals. But so did the Titans, and it didn't matter because of the mistakes the Titans made. So can the Bengals continue to ride that momentum and truly be a team of destiny? Or will it be too much this time? I don't know. And we'll have a lot more time to talk about it between now and February 13th and the kickoff of Super Bowl 56. But I'll just tell you this right now. I'm hesitant to bet against Joe Burrow right now because all this guy does is win. He's had 5 playoff games in his college and now NFL career. And he's 5-0. He went 2-0 at LSU, putting up record numbers. And now he's 3-0 with the Bengals in his 2nd season. And he knocked out the 1 and 2 seeds in the AFC on the road. And he's got a chance to win the Super Bowl. I'm not doubting him. Not sure everybody else around him is going to be good enough to do it again, but I'm certainly not doubting Joe Burrow. And for all the people who just looked out there and thought, Burrow's a really nice story, he's a really good quarterback, but I'm not sure he's yet on that level of the Rodgers and the Mahomes and the Allens and the Bradys and all the guys they're considered at the top. Joe Burrow's at the top. After what he's done this season and what he did in these playoffs, Joe Burrow is absolutely in that elite group. And now he's in a Super Bowl. And oh, by the way, the guy on the other side, Matthew Stafford, he's in that group too. He was pulled down for a long time by being in Detroit and being a part of the Lions franchise. He finally gets a team around him, and he wins 3 playoff games and goes to the Super Bowl. So one of those guys is going to have a very nice gem to go along their career story. Whether it's Stafford a little bit later in his career or Joe right off the top. One of those guys is going to have a gem to add to their career and their resume come February 13th at about 9 o'clock. But it is remarkable what they have been able to do this year. Our phone lines are open, 737-7767, the number. Would love to hear from you tonight. Your thoughts on what happened during championship weekend, your thoughts on those quarterbacks. We can talk about the Titans as well. I'll give you a little prompt from a letter I got when we come back as well. But we want to get to that. We'll get to Jonathan Hutton's analysis and much more. You're watching SportsLine here on News Channel 5+.